Timekeepers check their watches. Louise Duplessis says, let's get it happening.
I agree with Lisa Wilson. It's going to be a great tussle in the mid-court between Dawson and Dawood. And I'm looking forward to see how the New Zealand defenders go. Big raps on them coming into this match.
Robry feeds Tarua Barnett. Kath a little clumsy with the challenge, and New Zealand on the board first.
Big smile on the face of Tarua Barnett. Nice to sink your first shot, particularly under the pressure of this game. But that's beautiful play by Australia with the post, direct and fluent, and Wilson rewards it.
30 seconds of play, a goal apiece. As young Robry, wow, what a test for her. 20-year-old, as McInnes nearly got her first intercept.
Obstruction, fifth pass.
And it's nothing new for you and I to say, can we last a distance if it's going to be goal for an entire game? It's an old line, that one. Tarua Barnett offers a lot of mobility up the top of the circle. She's a very good mover. I think we'll see Dawson connecting with her.
A push call against Liz Ellis. And a second goal for New Zealand through Teresa Tairi.
Oh, Wilson's available under the post. She was well exposed as Vangana really hunts up high. You can see New Zealand already coming off the body, trying to sniff out the intercept. And I think their keeper very confident as she sits behind many.
So Vangana put beside Cusack. And 2-2 in the early stages. Tarua Barnett. Ellis trying to defend from behind.
Surprises me, Ellis taking the position from behind, because Tairi is not a tall shooter.
Held ball against the New Zealanders. So the first turnover. What can the Australians make of it? Harvey. Pass to Dalwood. Shelley O'Donnell. Cusack unmarked. Wilson. It's a fine pass.
Oh, good touch there from Vangana. It's interesting. The one thing that might beat New Zealand is Australia's speed, and Australia exploiting it early on.
A turnover in return for the Australians, and Wilson punishes. There's the break. 3-2. O'Donnell.
Well, there was a double on O'Donnell, but she still got through across the transverse line.
Dalwood, threads one to Wilson via the floor.
Wilson just a little nervous early on. The miss under the post is uncharacteristic for her, and that one not vintage Wilson.
Harvey picks up the crumbs. Well, Wilson's got to be a little bit nervous after her last outing against New Zealand a year ago. It was when she really did some serious damage to her right knee and required the knee reconstruction. So she's trying to keep those thoughts well to the back of her mind. As Harvey picks out Cusack.
That's the second time there's been some room behind the New Zealand defence.
And that goes against many, even though she went to the floor. Certainly doing some work on Cusack before that. Wilson in handy position. And it's 4-2 Australia. And a Robry. Leslie Nichol getting a good workout from Shelley O'Donnell. Average age of the New Zealand side, 22.5, Australia 26.5. You're talking a lot of experience there, especially when we look at the number of international caps.
I think the interesting comparison is if you look at both countries' respective Youth Cup teams 4 years ago. For New Zealand, their 4 Youth Cup members from that team are their experience. And for Australia, the Youth Cup members are just coming into the team now, sitting behind the likes of Wilson, Cusack, Dalwood, who've been there for quite a while now.
Cusack with that magnificent trajectory that makes her so difficult to defend.
A lot of speed on early in the game. New Zealand normally don't play with quite this much adrenaline.
Tarua Barnett forced to shoot from well out and shoots truly. The Kiwi.
Advantage, breaking.
They're a flightless bird, but they're travelling pretty quickly.
They're okay with a netball in their hands. I'm impressed by the confident start Tarua Barnett, New Zealand's goal attackers, put out.
Well, they need a steady hand from her down there. As we mentioned, the most experienced player, most in years. It's actually Bernice Meni who has the most caps with 27, and she's only 21.
from the very famous sporting family in New Zealand. She said it's not unusual to have 3 members of the family at 3 different world events.
Wow.
Athletics, their forte.
Yes.
And Dad just about to go to Olympics.
And her brother's going to the Olympics to represent Western Samoa.
Obstruction, wing and attack, penalty pass, Australia.
So her dad on decathlete at Commonwealth
Inside the
Games
goal,
and now a
sir.
coach. Many fine minis.
Yeah, she said they've thrown a few things between them. Oh, good touch there.
And well left by Wilson. 6-4 and nearly 6 minutes gone. Wilson takes it comfortably. Plenty of poise from the Australians early as they take a 3-goal lead. Cusack. Wilson gets a dream ball.
I thought about closing off the angle on that, but Wilson timed the move well. I think there's too much exposure, too much access to Nicole Cusack, and it's really causing havoc for the New Zealand defence. Many with her hands full trying to match Cusack's speed and her deceptive move. She's really quick on the change of direction.
Oh, ambitious pass. And Ellis and Tairi came together. Ellis had the neck a bit of a twist. Happy to continue. Oh, McInnes under pressure.
Have it. Toss up.
And both players seem to be offending by Louise du Plessis. Penalty count, 13-4 against New Zealand, so that's a costly stat for the Kiwis early on in this first test.
Ellis to Harvey. 8-4 Australia. McInnes. Good pressure from Nicol. And open is Teresa Tairi. Good turnover, New Zealand.
And Anna Robury in back play thinking about pushing a captain back on side should she topple.
O'Donnell.
Nicol's doing really well. I think the workload high from there, but I think it's the connection, and I think it's across many that I see them faltering.
Cusack with the no-look pass.
The placement's superb then into Cusack on the baseline.
Between the Australian squad, 350 international caps, and for New Zealand, 138.
Goalkeeper out of play.
So that's a difference of some 200 internationals plus. It's Tairi. Flips out.
New Zealand really struggling to get close-range shots, bar that last one, which was against the run of play. Ellis and Harvey doing well to close off the space close to the post.
Out of play.
And du Plessis resetting a lot of penalties that we're more used to seeing flow on. Oh, that one threaded both past Harvey and McInnes. Too much on it from Darwood.
Lee Gibbs is a real sufferer as a coach on the sideline. I think he really feels every pass. But, it's Robury looking for somebody, only finding Darwood. Cusack.
And Tairi sure that Dawson was behind her, and again, a lot of room behind the New Zealand defence.
Off the hands of Bernice Menny.
Contact call against Menny. Wilson leaves a penalty shot for Cusack.
Well, this is an ominous start by the Australians. They're certainly stepping up a class after what we saw from South Africa, but I think they've stepped up a class themselves.
A lot of speed on the ball out of Cusack's hands. Wilson misunderstanding the move, though, from her feeders, and it comes into Dawson's hands. Wilson, Steve, was earlier on in the week quite confident to predict a 5-goal win in the first and by 10 in the second. Well, she's pushed it a little early, I think.
In the test or the quarters?
Yeah. Well, I was asking about the test. Maybe she was talking quarters.
Now it's got to come back. The whistle of Louise du Plessis. Now Marilyn Malurish there, the Australian manager. And closest to camera, Liz Taverner, still waiting for her first lash at the senior team internationals.
Jill McIntosh has said in interviews through the press, that's pretty to watch from Australia. Nikki Cusack having a wonderful opener.
And enjoyed by Cusack and the Australian bench.
Darwood onto O'Donnell. Cusack, though, they find. She works the space on Menny, drives the base well, and pretty at the end. Nikki Cusack's having a wonderful game for Australia. not so long ago in the President's 12. She had a shocker, and she's recovered from that to put out what we expect. But just putting the moves on many, she's got her head turning.
And this is the starting 7 for Australia that took the court against South Africa.
Jill McIntosh confident that she'll be able to put all 12 Australian team members out throughout this series. So maybe not too long till Taverner sees her first cap.
Good try from Bernice Meni, arriving just a fraction late. And now there's 2 Australians in the circle and only 1 Kiwi. Now she can get back there. Thanks to an indiscretion from the teammate.
I'm sure Nicol not displeased to release the 2 circle defenders.
And Cusack bounces another in. Grace Bryant there closest to camera, Australian doctor, and on her way to the Olympics as part of the Australian Olympic medical team. Well, the no-look pass that time didn't work from Nicole Cusack, finding only an empty corner. Meni, Dawson. Well, I would like to have seen advantage play there.
I was waiting for you to say it.
Yeah, well, just Tahir and Louise Duplessis not playing the advantage as we might have expected just yet. We'll have a word to them later, won't we?
You're sure to. Now, it is more halting than we're used to under Australian whistles, but still the game with a lot of flow and a lot of speed. Over the top of McInnes, hopes Tarua Barnett.
Yeah, and the call against McInnes, that wasn't the best of challenges. The timing, Raw Robry.
And
trying
this
to
time,
fit Tahiri.
Robry's turn to offer the deceptive pass and see it come undone. Ellis to take the throw-in for Australia. Australia lead 12-6.
Touching the ball, penalty pass, shooter.
And contact on the hand advances the ball for Australia.
3 minutes left, first quarter. Good one for the Australians, restricting New Zealand to just 6 so far.
New Zealand putting up a good contest through the mid-court. The defence quite solid there from Robry, Tarua Barnett, Dawson and Nicol, but in the defence far more open.
Yeah, once it gets to the goal third, it opens up a little.
Transverse line danger signs for New Zealand. And the crowd sympathetic to Vangana then. They thought it was harshly done by. This time it's against Leslie Nicol, the New Zealand skipper. And it's advanced.
And another one against Vangana, as though the penalty count really starting to hurt New Zealand. Cusack, Wilson.
Well, it's 3-1 against New Zealand. They've had 24 against them, Australia just the 8. So that's something I'm sure Lee Gibbs will try to address at the first break.
McInnes contesting with Robry. There's a big difference in experience for those two.
Robry gets one on a toss.
Tahiri, Robry. New Zealand have been stuck on 6 for a while. They'd like Tarua Barnett's next shot to go in.
Yes. Goalkeeper, no, goalkeeper out of play.
So 14-7, a minute and a half to go in the first. A lot of whistle in this match so far. O'Donnell to Cusack. Across to Dalwood.
I guess South Africa watching this first quarter would be quite pleased with how they ran against Australia. Remember, Australia opened quite well in the first 6 minutes, but allowed South Africa back into the game. That's something McIntosh wanted to address. Not just content with the good start, she's asked the team to really build the lead once established and to cherish it. And they've done that in this first quarter.
Dawson, Robry. Oh, again, there I'd like to see the advantage played. I mean, New Zealand in possession, on the move. It holds their momentum. It should be not to the disadvantage of the team in possession or the non-offending team. Tarua Barnett around the back. Cheeky.
Pay that one.
Teresa Tahiri. And a good finish for a bit of sleight of hand.
Superb skills coming up from Nolene Tarua Barnett. She's at the top of the circle, working at goal attack. Just caught it inside and puts a bounce pass behind the back. Sure, we could invent a technical name for that, but it was delightful.
Will require some thought. Wilson has it now, and timekeeper will be up shortly. We're inside the last 60.
Wilson hesitating. She's put up 8 from 10. Cusack 7 from 8 in this first quarter. So Australia on target through their 2 shooters.
Wilson gets the shot away.
And that one worth more.
Just as the timekeeper comes to the shoulder of Louise Duplessis. And what a first quarter from Australia. Well, I'm sure they thought for Julie Dawson. And a change in the New Zealand lineup with
Leilani Reid coming on at goal shooter, so Lee Gibbs wasting no time in trying to grab some ground, and she's benched Teresa Tairi, who, as we said, put up just 3 from 5, and they're hoping that the combination between Taurua Barnett and Leilani Reid will be more impressive for New Zealand.
And Leilani Reid, the cousin of Bernice Meni. But so the Australians, who may score the first goal of the second quarter. No, they won't if Bernice Meni's got anything to do with it. Robbery. Leilani Reid came out to Australia in '92, didn't get a test. Liz Ellis.
Liz Ellis with eyes only for the ball, then had good position and went up high. But turned over again for the Kiwis.
Ellis again. Well, really, I mean, why not allow the outlet there? The defender was already out of play.
I have to agree with you, and the fact that Liz Ellis has now chased the ball almost back to the goalpost hasn't helped either.
Cusack. Wilson out of the circle to Dalwood. Cusack. Held ball.
I really have to go against that. I thought Cusack had possession far earlier, and that Meni really persisted with a challenge on the ball. That was all part of the 3-second count. I thought Meni should have been out for that one. Should have been a penalty shot, not dispossessed.
Dawson.
Oh, that was on. Good ball, good move. Hands, though, let her down. But that was more Reid's hands than Ellis's infringement.
But eventually, after 2 minutes of play in the second quarter, the first goal scored.
Wilson having to do a full 360 to find support play there. And New Zealand's come out of the break from the bench, fired up.
Reid to Dawson, Taurua Barnett. No, didn't hear the call from Zahir.
Scott head shaking all around us.
McInnes to Cusack. And again, a misunderstanding.
Not sure what Cusack was thinking then. It's the second ball she's placed, straight into the crowd.
She's got a friend up there in the third row.
She's got one at both ends of the court.
Meni to Reid.
Might be too harsh on her. She's having a fine game. New Zealand, though, starting to work the play. That was a fine ball from Dawson to Reid.
She's turned her back on it, Dawson, expecting and knowing that Leilani Reid would put it through.
Well, you'd be too scared to miss it if your centre's gone back to the centre.
Yeah, McInnes, Wilson.
Oh, nice thought, but Australia, I think, lucky to get away with that. There was a lot of congestion, speed from both players onto the ball, and I thought they were lucky to come up with it. Meni's come out with a new lease of life, working on the front ball.
Well, the Australians contesting that loose ball between them. Certainly Lee Gibbs was pretty animated in that quarter-time discussion. She had some harsh words to say as a brilliant ball finds Wilson. It's really not quite the match I think many of us were expecting, and a sizable lead for Australia early and not too much flowing play. It's sort of fairly frantic, broken down by a lot of whistle.
I agree. It is quite frantic on court, and the amount of dispossession from both teams at the start of this quarter is quite surprising. I think New Zealand's almost in catch-up mode early on.
Vicky Wilson.
Wilson starting to take command in that circle. I thought Cusack was dominant in the first quarter. And that's a free pass. Of course, we did have the ball. It could have been played on. But I guess we've flogged that theory a bit, haven't we?
O'Donnell Oh, is Wilson tall enough? Not
no,
quite.
she actually was up a little early for that one, and she throws it away in disgust. It was there to be hauled in.
Nickel to Robury. Many. Dawson. Ellis right with Reed.
Oh, and a good decision. Ellis had first possession to the ball.
He was a little anxious over the disposal from Ellis.
Now they'll both be out.
And I have to agree with Zahir on that. They really weren't giving the player opportunity to play the ball.
Contact centre, penalty pass Australia.
Dawson letting Carissa Dalwood know she's there. Cusack's trying to work the space again on the base behind the defenders.
And Wilson under pressure.
Can take it, penalty pass or shot.
And penalty pass for Wilson. And for 20 to 10.
Contact shooter, penalty
Well, you
pass.
go a long way to see Vicky Wilson miss 2 shots under the post in any one game. Not quite herself tonight, the Australian captain.
McInnes comes looking for the intercept. And it's opened it up at the other end.
Oh, Tarua Barnett set up that play. She's having a fine game for New Zealand. She's doing a great workload. Well, Tarua Barnett, she takes the ball now, works the space at the top of the circle, holds, opens up to the other side to receive the feed.
Dawson.
And 3 apiece in the second quarter, so New Zealand will be regretting their performance in the first to be trailing.
How often have we seen that? A team comes out of the blocks firing, takes a 5 or 7 goal lead, and not much changes after that.
Again, Tarua Barnett impressive for New Zealand, 7 the difference.
O'Donnell looks for Dalwood. Oh, Nickel closed in.
Nickel has good speed, and she works a lot to come off the ball, back to close the space on the next attacking player. Gives them a chance to push their next back defender into the circle.
Leslie Nickel, quite a successful track athlete at school.
And don't take her on in tennis either, be warned.
Robury
Wing defence, penalty.
gets the penalty. Comes a challenge from McInnes in the view of the umpires. So 7:50 left in the second quarter. Australia by 7, and it was by 8 at quarter time. So a much more even second quarter.
Can't help find myself missing Sandra Edge in this New Zealand lineup. Quite formidable in the mid-court, and of course ran both the defence and the attack.
Well, Sandra Edge left any team, you'd feel her loss. One of the great centre court players of the era. The margin back out to 8 for Australia.
I don't understand that call. I thought that ball was actually released before the whistle went for the centre, but I think even the players were bemused.
Dalwood. O'Donnell to Cusack. Oh, she gave the body language of someone who'd been bumped from the back by someone like Bernice Menny, but the umpires weren't buying it.
That was a confident delivery to the circle, but Ellis, like blue, works Reed and comes up with the intercept.
Held ball against Wilson. She was waiting for the right move from Cusack. Got it eventually, but a fraction of a second too late.
I think the whistle's now starting to disrupt the rhythm of Australia.
Nickel.
Oh, she does well to keep on court, both not going into the attacking third and staying away from the sideline. Roby tries to shake off the defenders, and it's straight through the hands of Reed.
Who was not amused. Gave a nasty glare to a teammate. McInnes, O'Donnell. Oh!
And she was actually offside, but Zahir not quick enough to check it out.
I think she got rid of the ball before she went offside.
That's spoken only as an Australian. She was in there.
Wilson.
Well, she tests the leg, pivots on it. That's a beauty from the Australian captain. Not
Just
an
about
easy
a smile
shot.
there too from Vicky Wilson as they take it out to 21-12.
And she's smiling that she's happy she's got 2 legs functioning after that.
She does seem to choose to land more on her left leg these days when she can.
I think your term earlier, frantic, still describes this game. Oh, Ellis. With little regard for the body, but gets around it.
Now Reed. 21-13. 5 minutes left, second quarter.
Advantage tracking.
Will Barnett. Back to Many. Nickel.
So it's been an even quarter in this second one.
Oh, off the hands of Tyrrell Barnett a little fortunately, but now to Australia, and here they come. Harvey loves to charge down court. Wilson now. Cusack. Dawson palms it out, but she was offside. O'Donnell.
Turnovers quite equal for this quarter. In the first, they were all against New Zealand, but Australia with their share of turnovers as well. And another New Zealand player, I think, has gone off the back to warm up.
Breaking, free pass Australia. Breaking means defence.
So break against Leslie Nicol. Australia moves down court with Wilson now. 22-13.
And again, the Aussie hands too quick for the New Zealand defenders.
I think Cusack's speed is really causing some problems for Many and Bangara.
I think that's crucial in Australia's performance. Her speed down the court and across that transverse line is killing New Zealand.
Tyrrell Barnett. Reed now. And time called by Nolan Tyrrell Barnett. Now, is that a...
Time.
I don't know whether she wears contact lenses, but she certainly went straight to her eye.
Yeah, I think we're just juggling with the lens now.
Out comes the physio, Suzanne McKenzie. And that's how it's done.
This is a tough quarter. Pushing quite a lot now.
Everyone at home without contact lenses is now squirming in their seats.
Hope she hasn't put in someone else's.
Check the eye colour. Just making sure, taking her time to check the vision's right and that she's comfortable. I guess even more crucial when you're the one looking at the goal ring.
Another woman there in the suit, Cheryl Wells, the manager. And Tyrrell Barnett, 23 internationals. Was at the World Championships last year.
Penalty count has swung in the second quarter, 13 against Australia, 9 against New Zealand, so it's reversed, and it may well be locked to the placement of the umpires, so we might see it swing again in the third quarter when the girls' change ends.
Reed. So 3.5. Please don't. Second quarter. The lead is only 9. Remember, it was 8 at the first break. Cusack makes it 10. Ellis. That was a little too easy.
Yeah, the work was done up ahead of her. Mind you, she's taken a few good balls for Australia.
Cusack. And Jill McIntosh looks fairly comfortable.
This does Nikki Cusack, 6 straight in the second quarter, so her stats were very impressive from the first, and she's carried it on.
Might nearly be the best player on court, Nikki.
She's got my money so far. It's not much of it, Nick. Sorry, but what it is yours.
Wilson. And wouldn't New Zealand be in trouble if Wilson was at her usual impeccable best? 3
from 6 in the second quarter, and she just doesn't look comfortable to me. Mind you, you'd love to have her even not on a great day.
Leilani Reed.
Reed too with 5 straight, so Reed out doing work outside the circle. Hunts now for space. Draws the back space on Ellis, having drawn it to the top of the circle first.
Dawson to Reed. Well, quite a few New Zealand supporters here in the crowd, but not as many as there were at the World Championship final in '91 at the Entertainment Centre. And I'm sure of the 10,000, 5,000 were Kiwis.
Probably Qantas didn't have as many planes available on short notice. You couldn't get that many out easily.
Now, Wilson took a slight fall there.
She might just be checking for the court to be wiped, get some of the sweat off the floorboards.
You ready?
Now, it's about 50-50 at the World Championships in Sydney.
Advantage offside.
So, coming on the floor here, they've actually had to import Australian Netball's own portable floor because the State Sports Centre here at Homebush got flooded early in the year. And it didn't do the floor a lot of good. Australian Netball fortunate enough to have its own floor that it can move around the country and put together pretty quickly. Rowbury. And through the hands of Ellis. 26-16. Minute left. Touch over in the second quarter.
Understanding breaking down then between Reid and Tarua Barnett. If you watch, it's normally Tarua Barnett that frees the space for the shooter.
And one against Tarua Barnett.
I think that's for setting it up. Harvey was caught with Tarua Barnett underneath her and not able to get a free run. So Tarua Barnett really holding space.
Plenty of time for Australia to convert here in the last 60 seconds before half-time. Dalwood looking for an option, and somehow Cusack was left alone. And the lead builds to 11. Could be 12 if they're quick enough. Cusack. Once again, Dawson forced offside. Dalwood could see it coming and didn't contest. Oh, Wilson sandwiched. Now the timekeeper's up.
Advantage contact.
Cusack gets it away and gets it through. A morale booster, a morale sapper for New Zealand, and they're going to go to half.
So both the same position.
Ready? Are you ready?
And we begin the third quarter through Julie Dawson set a pass to Rowbury. Lenny to Reid.
Fine ball from Reid into Nolene Tarua Barnett. That was steady play from New Zealand.
No changes to either lineup at half-time. Of course, Leilani Reid coming on for Tairi at quarter-time for New Zealand. Back to Harvey. Dalwood finds Wilson.
Smart ball from Wilson across court, allows Cusack to open up on the base, close to the post. She makes them pay.
And have you detected perhaps some more attention being paid to Vicky Wilson, which maybe is opening things up for Nicole Cusack? Is that happening in your eyes?
Well, I think Cusack, basically, as we've said time and time again, is beating many for speed, so she's becoming more available. And certainly when New Zealand do sag off, it does give more attention to Wilson. But even on that play, you can see that she was quite well marked there by Vangana.
That was a bullet from Carissa Dalwood, and Cusack couldn't catch it going by. Dawson leaves it for many. 29-18. Rowbury, Tarua Barnett. And Reid.
I'm really surprised it took New Zealand that time to find that move. That's normally quite a classic Kiwi move, that you create some deception with the outside work to open up the post to your shooter. And that really was a long time coming from them. So perhaps the combination not quite there yet.
Good start to the quarter by New Zealand. 4-1, they lead it and have possession.
I'd like to see New Zealand do far more work outside their circle in creating some openings for the shooters.
Turnover, though, and Ellis will take the pass for Australia.
That really hurts when they've worked so hard to establish dominance at the start of the quarter, to see turnovers like that given.
I think in view of their position at half-time, they're always likely to start the third quarter the more desperate. Oh, great return ball from Wilson.
Wangana really left the post exposed, then the lunge to the first ball left the space behind. Wilson working some space at the back. Cusack gets the drive, and you see Vangana caught past Wilson, leaving the post open.
And a scrappy bit of play leads to New Zealand possession. They trail by 10, 3 minutes gone in the third. Harvey having a strong game. Sure conscious every time she takes the court that Taverner and Lynch are on the sideline waiting for their first test appearance.
A couple of times it's come undone for Australia. Wilson not pleased.
Dawson.
Contact penalty pass New Zealand.
Nicol, Taurua Barnett. Reed.
I'll take it.
I'll take it, says Louise Duplessis. That
Must mean it's a toss.
Ellis, quick on the draw. Harvey. O'Donnell waits, thought about Wilson.
Oh, Wilson caught at the post by Vangana. She tried to drive the base. Space was closed off.
Zahir has seen something. Turn possession over. I would say, you know, a little over halfway through the match, Anne, that at no stage of the umpires look like they haven't been in control of the match.
No, they have control, as we said earlier. It's just different interpretations. Far less attention paid to playing the advantage, which is difficult for an Australian audience to watch, but nonetheless, it's what you hit in the international arena, and both our crowds and our players must become adjusted to it.
So Reed puts in number 21 for New Zealand. When New Zealand defeated Australia back in '94 in that third test in Auckland that we referred to at the top of the program, with 53-49. 4-goal win after Australia had won the first two. But since 1990, Australia's only lost 2 netball matches, both to New Zealand.
Oh, great ball.
So Barnett felt she was going out of court and wanted to dispose of it.
Too much speed for the stop. And sensational play there as we see the end of it after Taurua Barnett had disposed of the ball. That was one of the best passages of the match, though.
Wilson challenged unfairly.
And whilst she is out of play for the challenge, Vangana really did shut down the space again on Wilson, so not too much room on the baseline.
10 the lead for Australia, 9:30 left, third
Roby
quarter.
trying to work the dodge on McInnes, and she's stuck like glue.
Simone McInnes can't believe that she wasn't allowed possession.
Advantage obstruction.
Over the top and over everything.
Reed appealing to the umpire that there was contest on the body as she tried to go up. Harvey out of play, I think largely as a result of an appeal.
O'Donnell, Wilson.
Wilson tries to work the space out the top this time, and it's about to say with better dividends.
Dalwood to Cusack. It's got a little scrappy again. A lot of hands over the ball. The defence is very strong, both sides.
One too many.
Little too cheeky, I think. Not something you'd try in a World Championship final, I think, with a margin under 10.
Now, needed a cool head then to say, OK, I'll do something with this one.
Wilson to Cusack, and she'll get to take the shot a little more calmly than that interesting earlier exchange of passes. Have a look at this for some interesting juggling.
Cusack steps in, offloads to Wilson instead of taking the shot. Then there's some black and white hands, and then one too many from the Australian skipper.
So New Zealand have taken 2 out of the half-time lead. Better third quarter from them.
Reed really working the front position on Ellis. Elbows very high. I'm surprised she hasn't gone for that.
Cusack to O'Donnell.
New Zealand don't seem to be able to crack 9 goals.
Wilson as Vangana hit the floor.
Wilson's third for this third quarter. Cusack also on 3. Reed 6 from 7.
So the lead only 10, and again we can mention, Anne, that the Kiwis will be regretting that first quarter when they lost at 16-8.
Absolutely, a lot of the damage done in the first stanza. Just then, that play from New Zealand around their circle, far more what we're used to from them. Shooters opening up spaces for each other.
New Zealand squeezing a few more errors out of the Australians.
Pushing, penalty pass or shot.
Use of the ankle indicated by Louise Duplessis. Harvey can't believe the call, and Tarua Barnett welcomes it.
Well, that's an unusual one, pushing with your ankle.
Yes, that's not my strongest point. Oh, good ball then, Cusack to find Wilson. But again, unbelievably...
Well, that doesn't deserve to be pulled up. I mean,
that's ridiculous.
The advantage rule is there to be applied. Cusack to restore the 10-goal lead.
New Zealand so far could take confidence from the fact that they ran quite well with Australia in the second quarter. They're running goal for goal. In fact, they're winning this quarter.
O'Donnell, those spaces open up for Australia with the players out of play for New Zealand back down the court.
Oh, quick 3 seconds against Darwood.
Oh, no.
It's a sad stopwatch, that one.
It'll take a minute to run 100 metres on his watch. Wilson.
And that was down to Simone McInnes. Great steal. And McInnes will come flying through bottom of screen, actually through the midcourt.
Long, accurate shot from Nicole Cusack. And the little kangaroo getting a workout. As New Zealand here, as the lead builds to 12 again. 5.5 minutes left in the third. So the Australians were expecting a big effort after half-time from the Kiwis. They got it. Now can they steady? The lead is as it was at quarter time. At half-time, I beg your pardon.
Free pass, New Zealand. Inside the circle.
Offside ruling. Free pass will be taken by Tarua Barnett, who fakes the cross-court and offloads to the post to Reid. Reid tries to steady. She's under good attention from Ellis, who's got a great stretch over the ball and really is working the lean.
Tarua Barnett.
I think there's been some wonderful pressure from Harvey and Ellis in this game. They've had a fine performance for Australia as Wilson is nudged under the ball. She's getting quite a workout.
Well, talking to the South Africans after Australia had beaten them in Perth, and I asked them, I'll just have another look at Wilson in a moment, but the South Africans felt the difference between the Australians and New Zealanders was that there was less body from the Australians.
O'Donnell holds it up, and you just see Wilson there forced from behind. Well, I think sometimes the body comes to the fore when you can't match your opponent for speed. And sometimes it's out of a clumsy challenge, and other times it's out of frustration. As Wilson, again, misses an uncharacteristic shot. Sound like I'm harping on it, but I'm so used to seeing her impeccable in goals.
Biggest lead of the match so far. 14 it is for Australia, and we're 3.5 minutes away from three-quarter time.
Great work from Carissa Darwood to force the toss-up. It's her fiancé right in the middle of that shot, all smiles, and why not? Watching his wife-to-be perform brilliantly for Australia. She's been steady as a rock. It's been a very tough week, as we said, for the family, but she's been business as usual on the court. Very unassuming player through the middle for Australia, but not too many other claims for that centre patch.
I saw Marcia Ella at the start of the match, a great centre court player. I'm sure she'd be impressed with Carissa's performance today. Marcia, of course, the sister of the great rugby union players, Mark, Glenn and Gary.
In fact, quite a few internationals from that era. Cheryl McCormack, Keely Devry, Susie Kenny, Marcia Ella, all in the crowd.
Cusack with an acre of space to work with. It puts it through the small one. 40-26.
Well, Australia will be well pleased with their performance. They have built, and whilst New Zealand has mounted challenges to try and draw the scoreline back, Australia has withheld.
Tarua Barnett over the top of Harvey. Excellent shot. O'Donnell leaves it for McInnes.
Good work from Many for a tall girl to come down low and around the ball. She did well. Nichols been one of the best on court for New Zealand, trying to lead by example, the new Kiwi skipper.
Robry to Tarua Barnett.
Just puts it off court into the space for Reid, but she can't balance to put it through.
Advantage contact.
Dalwood, Harvey, Cusack to O'Donnell.
She knows Cusack's got the drive to the post. She really was just giving Cusack time. McInnes connects with Dalwood. Long drive there from Harvey. And watch, O'Donnell looks to Wilson, always holding it up for the ball to Cusack.
Advantage.
Soft turnover. Tarua Barnett has it taken from her by Liz Ellis.
Goalkeeper out of play.
So got a minute left before three-quarter time. And it looks like Australia is going to have won all three
Advantage
quarters
offside.
played so far. The lead at 14. It was 12 at half-time. 8 at quarter-time. O'Donnell. There's the nickel beside her. Now Wilson. Wilson's under some pressure there.
She's getting a fair bit of attention, as we've commented on. Again, Cusack, she must feel like the world stops, because on the 3 or so occasions when she's thrown one the wrong direction, it's been very quiet and the ball very astray. I think she'll be forgiven for those, given the good work she's done for Australia.
Tarua Barnett.
That one drops. They've been a little unsteady on the last couple of shots.
Only seconds left. And New Zealand have to be awfully quick to get in the 29th.
You just saw then New Zealand with all 4 attacking players on the same side of the court, so not too good a use of space.
Well, Australia looks to have a match-winning lead at three-quarter time, doing it nicely after an early challenge in that quarter. Julie Dawson has it as we start the last quarter. They began the third very impressively. Can they do it again here? A touch from O'Donnell. Bernice Many has it. Transverse line. Tarua Barnett. Dawson.
Again, little room. Ellis and Harvey really working hard to push the New Zealand shooters to the top of the circle.
Nolene scores the first of the last.
Fracking, free pass to Australia.
McInnes to Dalwood.
Now, wing defence pushing, penalty pass.
It was a fairly clumsy effort from Leslie Nichol. Now it's with Cusack. Fair bit of whistle between the centre pass and the shot for goal. Leilani Reid. Tarua Barnett, and the bounce pass for Dawson was just out of reach.
And Steve, Nicole Cusack on a 16-goal straight run that's taken her from the second quarter through the third and into the final.
That's not too shabby.
Held ball.
Held ball against her that time, though. Well, if she had one bad game over in Perth before the South African test, it can't be anything but distant memory now.
I think it did her the world of good.
Oh, she turned 30 that week. I think that was the crisis.
It was the crisis or the recovery. These
Harvey.
3 second calls, unbelievable from both umpires. Players with a little chance to even consider an option before the whistle's blown.
Wilson, one-handed take.
Advantage
Dalwood,
offside.
likewise.
Again, Wilson's moves to the top of the circle, freeing Cusack for the feed. And she continues her perfect stretch.
Well, the coach is going to look at that after the match and be very pleased with Cusack's effort.
A little too much on it from Wilson to Cusack.
Play.
Idea, though, was delightful.
I think the New Zealand defenders will be hoping that that cohesion between Cusack and Wilson doesn't improve. And there's certainly room for it. Now, Leilani Reid has called for time.
Yeah, it's got a bit of Ellis on her take.
Here comes Suzanne McKenzie again. See,
Nicol with the drive down court for New Zealand. Robury opens up. And you just see the end of that clash. Actually, it was Harvey coming through. Took a bit of Reid's head. So she's fine to continue.
Still attached, happily. And she's okay. Well, the crowds come hoping to see an Australian win. They probably weren't expecting one of this margin, but they're well pleased with what they've seen, I think. So Dawson. The Silver Ferns trailing by 13.
And Ellis is down. Reid has been using the elbows quite strongly, and I think she's had enough of the close marking from Ellis, and I think Ellis might have been on the wrong end of one of those just then.
So Grace Bryant out there. So a little bit of injury time happening in this third quarter. So on the picture, Annabelle Wilson, the physio, wiping the floor. Got pretty pointy elbows.
Your book on elbows will be coming out soon, I see.
Ah, absolutely. Tarua Barnett with Ellis set to continue. 13 the lead for Australia. 12
Reid's
minutes
on
to
hold.
go.
I don't know why it wasn't given earlier by Robury. All she did was allow Ellis time to come off the body and round for the intercept. I think the feeding's been a little down for New Zealand.
And it's Sandra Edge who they'd be missing at the moment.
Well, she really orchestrated attack for New Zealand. And Cusack, I think, with her 18th straight. We keep an eye on that. We're sure to jinx her. Wilson, strong lead at the top of the court, and a beautiful ball to Cusack. It was always going to happen. You could see the speed mounted by Cusack to the post. The crowd loved that one.
It's a pass that Vicky's just about made her own. Happened pretty quickly, didn't it? Leilani Reid pulls the lead back to 14. We tend to see Wilson put on a bit of an exhibition if she gets the opportunity in a final quarter if the match looks won. Has the skills to delight and deceive.
Penalty pass or shot, out of play, goal.
Cusack gets rid of Vanganau with the fake.
Good pressure from Darwood and the backup there from O'Donnell, and Australia has the numbers.
And just placed around the corner by O'Donnell for Wilson. For another.
That's Wilson's first goal of the quarter, but what a beauty. It's been all Cusack until then. Cusack with 5, Wilson with just the 1, and New Zealand just 3 on the board. Australia starting to open up.
Well, this won't please Lee Gibbs. I'm sure she's after a big effort in the final quarter. So
In fact, I was thinking when the difference was just 13, if New Zealand, who had had a fair bit of ball at that stage, could have gone on with it and maybe brought it back to about 10, the difference, there were good signs for them going into the second test.
Reid. A good match in heights, these squads. With Australia averaging around 178 centimetres and New Zealand 178.5. But it's all in experience. I think Australia holds the edge.
Good take from Reid then. That one should go against Ellis. Harvey with 2 to mark. New Zealand elect to offer in different directions.
Ellis too strong. McInnes. And a rare misunderstanding between the Victorians, McInnes and O'Donnell.
Oh, I thought McInnes was great distance from the landed foot then. Dawson, in fact, had gone past her landed foot and stepped into the player.
Well, McInnes thought so. The eyebrows went up. Not towards the umpire, it must be said. You'll never see that from her. Harvey places it ahead of Dalwood. O'Donnell, Wilson wants it, but Dawson was in the way.
This time O'Donnell doesn't falter. She goes straight to the ball.
And Vicky Wilson can only smile at the misunderstanding.
A few times Anna Robury's been quite hesitant to offload the ball, and each time she's given Australia confidence and time to come through. I think she's really done a shooters a disservice holding up some of those deliveries.
7-4, Australia leads the last quarter. High mistake rate now coming from New Zealand and Australia, really. Harvey.
Wilson with the workload out the top of the circle, leaving Cusack on strike in goals. Australia varying their formations in attack.
Dawson.
Ellis again throwing herself into a work. We talked about the beauty of Australia's defence, and we should include McInnes and Dalwood in that, because the work they're doing up front is allowing Harvey and Ellis the freedom to take some intercepts and some strong marking.
Halfway through the last quarter, and the lead out to 16. 47 matches the teams have played since 1948. 27 wins to Australia, 18 to New Zealand, and 2 draws. Australia look like they're going to add another one to their total.
And it's a New Zealand centre. So here to here, just rectifying that.
And in the 90s, Australia's really had the edge, having won 11 of the last 13 matches between the two since the Commonwealth Games in 1990. It's a different story in the 80s, though.
Simone McInnes just limping in back play. Moved down to that last ball, and she's a bit slow to get going again. Australia won't want to see an injury to her.
Many pulls one in. Nickel. Oh, no. That was a 3-second call. It was about 1.5. Maybe it was something else.
New Zealand inside the
He
circle.
did hold up 3 fingers.
Play.
Dawson. Robury.
New Zealand still with good time, just over 6 minutes to make the scoreline more respectable. Won't grab the win, but they could feel happy about how they finish out the match.
Tarua Barnett. Dalwood looks for a touch, and O'Donnell just can't quite turn quickly enough. 6 to go. 49-35 Australia.
Oh,
Harvey.
great work from Harvey, and the pressure from McInnes up front of her was tremendous.
Well, there, the advantage should have been to New Zealand. I mean, Reid was at the post in possession.
It's also time-consuming. It eats up the time that could be used for the play, and particularly if you're the team in chase position. The constant resetting and gathering of the ball and going back to where you were is really spoiling their chances. Back to 13, and New Zealand with the chance to try and save some face.
It's Ellis, though. McInnes. O'Donnell to Wilson. Into the corner for Dalwood.
Cusack on hold, screens for Wilson, but New Zealand do well. They come off Cusack, read the play well, and bumped Wilson out of the picture to boot. But at the other end, it's Harvey. Robury with an answer. Oh, that was not the option.
Oh, a lot of body clashes out there in the last 15 seconds.
Reid should have used Robury behind her and gone herself.
You'd think there was a 1-goal margin, not 13. The commitment is 100% out there from both teams.
McInnes calling the players just to calm down a little. It's very physical on court.
Well, I certainly don't want an injury. McInnes has it.
And you see her then just holding it up. I'm surprised she didn't get a 3-second call. But you see her holding it up to try and make Australia play with a little more patience, a little more finesse. Because we're just starting to slam into bodies a little, and New Zealand's coming off the better for it.
Bernice Menny having a strong last quarter, pulled in a couple of important intercepts. Tarua Barnett.
And again, you see no movement on the outside of the circle from the New Zealand feeders. They're planted, they're anchored on the circle. It's not releasing space for the shooters.
Three and a half to go, and New Zealand are leading the last quarter.
Right.
9-8.
I almost hate to say it, but Cusack on 21 straight as Australia approach their circle. Wilson, though, on target. Not on target. Wilson's had only the 3 attempts in the final quarter. Very quiet. Cusack with 6 from 6. Robury holds it up again, and once again it gives time for Ellis to run through on it. Why she persists in giving the ball to the one she's held it up on is beyond me. It's the one time you'd expect her to swing it and quickly find the angle.
Robury looks for something and finds Nolene Tarua Barnett, who finds the net, and they're 38.
Well, this is the way New Zealand would like to have started the game. It's back to 11. Oh, almost lucky. Tarua Barnett with a big smile on her face because she knows it nearly went the wrong way.
And back to 10. Well, I'm sure they'll regard this as something of an achievement to win this last quarter, perhaps even get the difference down to single figures. And Australians, I don't think we could accuse them of taking it easy in the last quarter, Anne.
No, I think it's just a matter of New Zealand getting a second win. They've found quite a few turnovers. It's been very physical the last quarter. And the defenders have been managed to find a fair bit of ball.
Zahir giving a decision that gave Liz Ellis some displeasure. Harvey. Well taken by Leslie Nichol, the captain. Robury. Oh, and again, a very skinny 3 seconds. Dalwood. To Cusack. Dalwood to Wilson.
Advantage obstruction.
Just 75 seconds to go. And 10 the lead. They get it back to 9. Oh, there was arms everywhere as Nolene Tarua Barnett looked towards the umpire and got nothing. A lot of it was away from him. Don't blame Zahir for that. He really couldn't call what he couldn't see.
Inside.
Oh, and after the ball had long gone, McInnes and Robury both hit the floor. They came up smiling and uninjured. Menny, not expecting it. Robury to Tarua Barnett. Well, the margin was 1 goal last time they met. It's going to be a few more this time, but a game final quarter from New Zealand. And Lee Gibbs, as I look across to the New Zealand bench, looks a little more comfortable with the way the match is ending. Timekeeper gets up. 9 the margin. And Nolene Tarua Barnett doesn't get to take the last shot. 49-40 to Australia.